American physicist, Nobel Prize winner Richard Feynman. If a person decided to build a perpetual motion machine, he would be faced with a prohibition in the form of a physical law. In contrast to this situation, in biology, there is no law that would assert the obligatory finiteness of the life of each individual. I believe that the main way for a person to become immortal is approximately the same as that already used by some existing, essentially immortal organisms on Earth. Namely, the transfer of the main features of the organism from the obsolete part, which subsequently dies, to its new, younger part. With the help of this method of regeneration, some mollusks, hydras, and jellyfish can theoretically live forever and not age at all, although an accidental death is still possible for them. But how can this be done technically? And what if at some point you have two copies of the same person? And won't the destruction of the old copy be classified as murder? We will be trying to find answers to all these questions. The total number of neurons in the human nervous system ranges from 85 to 100 billion. But to recreate the personality on a new basis, less than a third of them will be needed. Moreover, it is quite possible that you will not have to worry much about structuring new brain tissue. The brain is amazingly plastic and will form the structures it needs on its own. So, in order to make a specific person practically immortal, we must learn to transfer his personal characteristics, living in the neural network of his brain, to a new neural environment that is grown on his own brain. In other words, we must create an artificial Siamese twin, a fused-in brain with the original, wait until the personality characteristics and memory of the original move into the new neural network, and then separate the twins and dispose of the original. Growing additional brain tissue should be done on the open brain of a person who is in an artificial coma with the participation of his stem cells, with some controlled stimulation of their growth. This is a very difficult matter, but in principle feasible. That is, in essence, we must grow a slightly smaller copy of it on the existing old, but still living and normally functioning brain. And therefore, if a person wants to become practically immortal, he must be prepared for the fact that for more than 10 years, considering modern technologies, he will be in a state of artificial coma with an open skull. At least a third of his brain structure will be grown on his brain, into which they will try to transfer his personality characteristics and memory. I believe that this movement can be activated by artificially suppressing certain parts of the original brain, and the brain, using its plasticity, will begin to transfer the functions of these parts to the newly formed part. It is quite possible that additional methods will have to be invented to stimulate such a transfer, given that the body in a state of artificial coma cannot function in its usual way. It is also necessary to develop ways to test the results of transferring personality characteristics and memory to new tissue. That is, at some stage there will be two similar personalities in the double brain, and to test the success of the transfer process, the still working organs of vision, hearing, and speech, and come up with a way of verifiable communication with the newly formed copy when these organs finally stop functioning. After the necessary and sufficient part of the personality has been formed in the new parts of the brain, a special commission, including close relatives and friends of the patient, will have to come to the conclusion that this is approximately the same personality through a series of tests, currently existing in duplicate. But the main thing is that the person whose personality was copied in this way must admit this. That is, somehow inform the commission that he is approximately the same and is ready to continue to exist in such an updated form. Based on the results of all these examinations, a legal procedure is subsequently carried out to recognize for the renewed personality, essentially a piece of flesh about 400 grams, for all the rights and family ties belonging to the old personality, and a decision is made on euthanasia and disposal of the old part of the body in accordance with previously formalized agreement of that matter. The newly formed copy of a person's personality will probably exist in the form of a piece of brain matter in a state of artificial coma for quite a long time, until at the next stage of scientific progress for a way to grow or attach the rest of the body to it for a more comfortable life. Of course, not everyone will agree to such a rather complex procedure of immortality, which is repeated several times every approximately 50 years. Initially, perhaps some millionaire or a hopelessly ill person. But after a number of successful results and improvements, The process of copying the brain and transferring personal characteristics and memory can be significantly simplified and accelerated. And people gaining immortality, at will, can become a completely routine procedure, just as joint replacement has now become a routine procedure.